Hit it, boys.
Welcome everybody into this episode of HTF Bets on a wonderful Wednesday. My name is Nick Geddes, and I am joined in by my co-host Robert Husby, and we are also joined by almost game day host Sean Green, who is filling in for Okelo Pena today. Sean, how are you doing? What's it like to be on the show again this week?
I'm doing good. I'm very happy that Okelo's not here. I'm just happy to talk to you guys. We'll get into everything as we go on through the show, but I'm excited to be on bets for season 2.
Absolutely. We're glad to have you here. We're going to jump right in back to the NFL, which there's no breaks in the NFL. The offseason here, which means rumors are swirling all around the league right now. We have 3 huge players who might be on different teams by the time next season starts. And we're going to start with Deshaun Watson, who has been grabbing headlines for the situation going on in Houston. He wants out. They don't want to trade him. We don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to come to you, Robert. Who were you betting on for Deshaun Watson to be playing football in 2021?
I've thought a lot about this just because it seems pretty unfathomable that Deshaun Watson would get traded. Just because Houston, you don't want to make that mistake of already getting a new GM and a new coach and coming in and already trading your cornerstone piece. But it seems like he's probably going to end up getting traded. He doesn't like it there anymore. He's, requested a trade. It just seems like it's inevitable that he gets traded at some point. I would say, honestly, a lot of people say the 49ers, a lot of people say the Dolphins. I really don't see anything from the Dolphins yet. I would say if any team, probably the Jets. I don't know if the Jets are going to take a quarterback with the number 2 overall pick, just because they have a lot of other needs. I mean, getting a guy like Penei Sewell would really, really help with just a god-awful offensive line. There's still rumors that they're going to trade Sam Darnold at some point, so they're going to need a quarterback. But, I think the Jets make a lot of sense. The Jets probably can offer even the 2nd overall pick if they want to trade that. If they want to trade that and get a guy like Watson, I think Deshaun Watson's more of a guarantee than Justin Fields at number 2. So definitely I think the Jets would go after him. I really just don't see the 49ers or even like the Colts. I think the Colts, if we end up talking about him, I think the Colts are way more likely for a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo or Carson Wentz. So I think the Jets probably make the most sense at this point. I just don't see it with the Dolphins.
Yeah, the Jets are a trendy and popular pick. Sean, how do you see it?
Well, the one thing I disagree with on Rob and his pick with the Jets is Deshaun Watson has a no trade clause in his contract. It was mentioned on Just Winning. I don't think Deshaun Watson wants to go to the Jets. I don't think he wants any part of the New York Jets. If I'm being realistic, I just think, we go to the Patriots. I think, perfect. Listen, I think it's a perfect fit. No, the Patriots are not getting him. That's a pipe dream that I would love. But no, I think the most realistic option, more than likely, is probably the 49ers. Again, you have to probably trade swap Garoppolo and Watson. That looks like a very realistic possibility. Do I think that will happen? I don't know. This is a very intricate and hard trade to get done because, again, Watson just signed this big contract. A lot of dead money for the Texans. I think the Texans want a big haul that some of these teams are not going to be willing to give up a future, basically 5 first-round picks for this quarterback, even though he's going to change your franchise. So I agree with Rob, the 49ers, the Jets. Listen, I'm talking here, Rob. Come on now. Maybe the Broncos. I think that's a dark horse team that a lot of people aren't really talking about. I think the Broncos and John Elway would be very willing to give up, I'd say, 4 first-round picks and Drew Lock for Deshaun Watson. That's a dark horse team that I think has some really possibilities.
Yeah, I think the 49ers, the one thing I would be leery of with them is they're not exactly in the best cap situation. And you mentioned that contract. It's a steep contract for any team. I mean, and Richard Sherman already said he already knows he's being a cap casualty. They just don't have much money to go after. So there's some concern there unless they're able to get that Garoppolo contract over to the Texans, which logically you think would happen. I'm going to go a little off the radar. I think he stays in Houston. That's me. They don't have to trade him. I think they've made that very clear. He can be upset all he wants, but he is a franchise quarterback, 25 years old, that just signed a fresh contract with Houston with new management, new head coach. I don't think they have no inclination to trade him. They've made that clear. And I don't think they're going to get that big offer they want. And I think this is the one guy you have to stand pat on. That's my thoughts on him.
I don't think, if we've seen anything in the past couple of years, it's players have more leverage when it comes to these type of issues, right? Deshaun Watson, the top 10 player in the NFL. You're right. Texans don't need to trade him. But I think they said it on Just Winning, and I loved this, thought process. The teams have done this a bunch of times where they said, "Oh, we're not going to trade this player. We're not going to trade Deshaun Watson," and then teams just, give a more bigger haul. So that might happen, but I think Deshaun Watson is completely done with how the Texans have managed this roster, and he just wants to go.
Yeah, I think if they keep him there, he may not even play. He may not play for all we know. But for me, I don't know why he'd want to go to the Jets. And the Jets make a lot of sense logistically, but if we're leaving the Texans because we think they're a dumpster fire organization, what are you going to the Jets for? I know it's a new coach and all that, but still, it doesn't make any sense. But we're going to switch over to his teammate, J.J. Watt, who got his request answered by the Texans, and now he is on the free agent market. Rob, I'm going to come to you. What do you make of this whole J.J. Watt situation?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I mean, you want to talk about one of the reasons why Deshaun Watson's done with the Texans. I mean, besides trading D-Hop last season, I mean, here's another guy, just a veteran in the locker room, probably the heart and soul, not even probably, the heart and soul of that Houston Texans team, a leader in the locker room. And, he walks away. They did it the classy way. But, J.J. Watt leaving is a huge, huge stain on that team moving forward. So as far as J.J. Watt goes, I think the two most popular ones right now are the Steelers and the Packers. Everybody's talking about, oh, he's going to go to the Packers. Packers are going to pay up. They need a guy like that. They need a defensive end like that. He's a Wisconsin boy. Go home to Lambeau. Play with the Packers. The other one's obviously the Steelers. I think that's just because the Steelers are a competitive team like the Packers, but also because both of his brothers are in Pittsburgh. So as far as I think it is between those two teams. I'm leaning right now more towards the Packers because I think the Packers are going to allocate some of that money they would honor to Aaron Jones to getting a guy like J.J. Watt, just because that is more of a position of need for them. I really didn't think it at first, but I really don't see them overpaying Aaron Jones. I think Aaron Jones is a guy that will walk for more money. I don't think he sticks around, just simply because I don't think they're willing to pay forward all that money. So, especially for a running back in this day and age. But no, I think right now the Packers make the most sense for Watt. They offer him the best chance to win, I think. I think even more than the Steelers, they offer him the better chance to win because, even with Aaron Rodgers up in the air, he's coming back. But, there's even more of a up in the air situation with the Steelers because, Ben Roethlisberger looks washed, and who knows, are they going to get a guy like Sam Darnold, or what are they going to do at quarterback? So I think it's more of a sure thing to go play with the Packers. I think the Packers make the most sense to sign with over even playing with his brothers in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and we saw the report come out, I think it was yesterday or today, that the Browns are in on him, and he's very interested in going to Cleveland. They have a lot of what he wants. It's obviously an up-and-coming team. Another guy, big name guy who could be on the market is Von Miller. He's owed $18.5 million by the Broncos. He missed this entire season with an injury. He's 31 years old, going on 32 years old. Sean, if you had to pick between Von Miller or J.J. Watt, and you're a team in free agency, if Von Miller gets there, who are you picking, and where do you think a best spot for Von Miller would be?
I think it's a toss up for, I think either one of those guys can increase that defense or increase your defense for whatever team. We have to wait and see what happens with Von Miller. Again, like you said, that cap space is a big burden on the Broncos for a team trying to get better. But Von Miller is a Super Bowl MVP. He's won a Super Bowl for the Broncos. One of the top 10 defensive players in the last 10 years, if not top 5. So I think if you're looking at both those players, that's a toss up. Where do I think they will go? Again, I think I can just say this. They're going to both go to the Patriots, I think.
I bet.
All right, then they're both.
Do I just sound stupid when I
so
do
they're
this?
both going to the Buccaneers.
I feel like I just sound and look so stupid. I actually did, but to be completely frank, I do think one of those two could potentially go to the Patriots. I think the Patriots, we're talking about teams that have no cap space, right? When you look at the Steelers have no cap space. The Packers, not a lot of cap space. So JJ Watt, I don't think is going to say, yeah, I'll take a vet minimum to go play for, this team. No. So I think when you look at some of these teams, like a Patriots team, or, I think even the Browns have a little bit of cap space left over. Those are potential destinations for both Von Miller and JJ Watt. Teams that are, still going to be contenders, still can do some things, but can also pay up that money that JJ Watt and Von Miller deserve to be paid.
Yeah, and I'll just add before you go, Nick. I would just say that, with as regards to JJ Watt and stuff like that, I think it's a situation where he's been in Houston his entire career. Does he want to win, or does he want to get paid? If he wants to get paid, he's not going to go to Pittsburgh, or he's not going to go to Green Bay because they can't afford him, like Sean said. If he wants to win, he's going to pick one of those teams, or even Cleveland, because Cleveland's defense is, very well structured for a guy like that. So I think it comes down to, does he want to win, or does he want to make the bag? And that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, I mean, JJ Watt, we have to, like I said earlier, he's 32 years old now, not getting any younger. Obviously, the last 2 seasons have not been his best. There's been some sign of decline. He's an interesting situation. I think he could get anywhere from, he could sign a 1-year deal, 12 million, or he could sign a 1-year deal, 4 million, depending on what team that is. Like I was joking about Tampa Bay, but Tampa's going to go look into him. They're going to maximize every single window they have with Tom Brady, and they're going to look into JJ Watt. And if JJ Watt wants to win, then I could see a 1-year, $3 million, $4 million deal with Tampa, easy as day. But I think there's a smaller list. Like Pittsburgh's kind of the same way, where he could do something like that. So he's an interesting situation for sure on that end.
No, and I think you look at it, especially like like you said, Nick, Tampa can do something with that, but Tampa has a lot of issues. They need to re-sign a bunch of guys. So depending on where that cap space lies, as we get closer to free agency, that's going to be telling. I think a lot of these teams, especially like you said, the contenders, are saying, listen, do you want to win? Because we can win some football games. We're just not going to be able to pay you this money. I think, I agree, Rob, tell me if you agree with me. I think JJ Watt doesn't really care as much about the money. I think he's been in Houston his entire career. The guy looks miserable after every single loss. I think he wants to go and win something, but I also think it's like, say for Pittsburgh, he goes to Pittsburgh. I don't know if he's willing to take a pay cut and get paid less than his brother. I think there is always ego with football players. I think he wants to be paid decently. He doesn't want to take a huge pay cut, but he also wants to win.
Yeah, sort of like a nice balance in between. I agree with that. I mean, I think, he's not going to take some, like you said, veteran minimum deal or anything like that. But, he's got to also understand too, he's 31, 32 years old. He's got injury history. His brother at this point is a better defensive player than he is. So he can't be expecting to get what some of these top defensive ends are getting right now, because he's not that guy. He's not a Nick Bosa. He's not a Joey Bosa. He's not his brother. He's not Aaron Donald. So he's got to understand too. But that's where it comes in between a balance. Okay, I'll take a less money to go win, but who can pay me what I want, at least half of what I want, and also can offer me the best chance to win. So that's probably why he hasn't signed yet. I mean, it's going to take a while, I think, for him to figure out where he wants to go to find the balance for him.
Absolutely. I mean, in this offseason, it's going to be wild. We just talked about only 3 players, but there's so much more going on. Quarterback carousel, which I'm sure we'll get into as free agency is set to get underway in just about a month here. But that'll do it for this segment. Please stick with us, because when we return, we're going to jump into fantasy basketball, what you need to know, and maybe why we're all wearing black.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to HTF Bets. And as you can see in our lower window there, Sean has been replaced by a piece of paper that says Okelo P can't beat me. Sean, what is that in reference to, if you don't mind telling us that?
Oh, just for a couple weeks, I hear on the show, I can't defend myself. Okelo has a really bad fantasy football, season, one of the worst in history. And then he goes to fantasy basketball, wins 5 games, and thinks he's on the top of the world. Well, that's why we're wearing black, you see, because this is the death of Okelo Pena's basketball team, because he's finally lost. And who better to lose to than the guy he can't stop talking about, which is me. So, just like UCF is living rent-free in Paul Feinbaum's head, I am living rent-free in Mr. Okelo Pena's head. So I just want to thank all my supporters for giving Okelo his first loss of the season. This is a win for everybody. This is an everybody win. everybody in the fantasy football league. So yeah, this is why we're all wearing black. It is the death of Okelo Pena's fantasy basketball team.
Wonderful, wonderful. I love that we're doing this, and in the middle of this, I'm midweek playing Okelo, and he's beating me right now. So I'm sure the way this will end is he'll, get the win this week, and then he can goof on me next week. So that's what happened.
The good
football.
thing is he can't come on here and say he's undefeated because he's not. He's lost a game. So
Correct.
That's the most important thing. That's what I'm happy about. It doesn't matter who he beats now. He can't come on here and say he's undefeated.
That is all that counts. So you're doing pretty well in fantasy yourself. You obviously just beat Okelo, like you said. I believe you're first in our league.
I am. Yeah. Realistically, fantasy basketball is interesting. I really don't play fantasy basketball. The 1 week I lost, which was to Austin, pretty much half my team was out with COVID and the scheduling was completely off. He had much more players playing. So with that being said, I should be undefeated, but I'll take my one loss like a champ. I'm probably going to lose this week to Nick. Nick's players are playing incredible. I'm getting killed by Nikola Jokic. So we'll see. I'm hoping I can pull out the win here. But yeah, my team's playing stellar. Kawhi So Serious is very serious this fantasy basketball season.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I beat Nick this past week. So Nick, how other than that, how's your team been? Obviously, like Sean said, you got Jokic, you got some real good players on the team. It was a fight to the end.
We just haven't been able to. We haven't really been able to win many games. I'll tell you that. 2-4. Right now we're facing the best team in the league. Good start, but Jokic is carrying my team. I have got a bone to pick with the Cleveland Cavaliers. I have a bone to pick with the Cleveland Cavaliers, plain and simple. Andre Drummond was putting up points for me. Top 10 fantasy basketball player, and now they don't want to play him. They want to trade him. The trade deadline is not for a month and a half, and we're just going to let him rot and not play him. I am so sick of the Cleveland Cavaliers. That is the best player the Cavs have had since LeBron left, and they decide now they don't want to play him, and they want to trade him, and that just makes my team even worse. It makes my team even worse. I'm on the injury bug. I have no bench spots. So we're going through it right now. But we did pick up Kyle Anderson. He's averaging 41 points in his last 5 games. He's been a nice little bright spot. Sean got introduced to him last night. So we're doing good from that standpoint, but very unhappy with the Cavaliers.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say my season's been much better. I started off 1-3, and I'm back to 3-3. I'm on a 2-week win streak, I should say. And it's been interesting because I think I have a good team, and I've been consistently one of the top scorers in our league. And it's just like the wins weren't paying off because every time I face somebody, I faced Sean, faced Austin, I faced other people in our league, and I'm like getting not blown out, but I'm losing by like 20, 30, 40 points. And it's like, okay, I'm scoring all these points and it's for nothing. So it really is definitely a lot different than fantasy football. It's really my first time playing fantasy basketball as well. So when it's all said and done, I think I'll have a decent team, but yeah, it's definitely been hard. I feel that, Nick. So let's go into it a little bit. Usually we do waiver drops, waiver claims. We'll probably do a little bit of that, but Sean, I'm going to go to you first. Who's one guy on your team? And obviously, there's obvious ones like Kawhi and all that, but who's one guy on your team that's maybe been a surprise or maybe been, a real standout and really has helped you this season so far?
I've got to be honest. I didn't expect this guy to put up this many points each week, but Nikola Vucevic, he's been stellar for me. Consistent guy to put up 40 plus a night. He's the Magic's only player, it seems like. The Magic have one point guard active on the roster. He's their guy. So I think, and we have a bunch of good players. Listen, the team is stacked. All right. And I got to talk highly of my team. I got to give them credit. We've got a bunch of good players. But Vucevic has really kept me above and beyond, right above that line of, being the best team in the league. But who knows? That could go crumbling down real quick with the Magic going down quick as well. So we will see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a Magic fan, but, I got to defend Nikola Vucevic a little bit. People really just underrate this guy. The guy's a consistent all-star. I mean, puts up points like a machine. I think you see how important he is, especially because Markel's out. Now Cole Anthony's out. So, I mean, that team has just caught the injury bug this season. And, Vucevic is just a standout, like you said, Sean, in fantasy. I mean, Fournier, from what I've seen, has done pretty well in fantasy. I mean, he's not my favorite player, but
I hate to I Evan Fournier is a very interesting player for me. Listen, picked him up. He was doing very well. Back spasms came back. So don't you love the back spasms? So he is now on the waivers, not dealing with the back spasms. I'll just stick with the guy that I know is the clear-cut number one, and we won't deal with the back spasms Fournier right now. We're not going to deal with that.
That's fair. And that's been a common theme, is just the injuries, the COVID, just dropping, picking up. I mean, there's a lot of movement, way more movement than fantasy football. Nick, who's one guy for you that's been a standout, or, maybe like a kind of, low-key guy putting up consistent points and all that? Obviously, again, like Sean had Kawhi, you have Nikola Jokic, but aside from him.
From one underrated player to another, Julius Randle, he has been absolutely feasting for the Knicks this year, who might sneak into a playoff spot. They might sneak into a playoff spot with Julius Randle as the best player on their team, which I never thought I would ever say that sentence in my life. But here we are. He's averaging 23, 11, and 6. He put up 40 the other night against the Hawks. He's finally starting to get his due, and his three-point shooting has been awesome. Shooting 40% from three this year, which is crazy. Julius Randle is a guy that the Lakers gave up on. And this year I took him as kind of a flyer late in the rounds because I know that he would get the volume, but he's improved his game all the way around. He's facilitating. I mean, he's getting some triple double. He's been awesome. So Julius Randle is my guy. And like I talked about Andre Drummond being out, Julius Randle has been able to take a lot of that load, and he's been arguably my second best player outside of Jokic.
Yeah, I mean, the whole Knicks team has been really, just an underachieving team, for the most part the last few years. I mean, underachieving to say the least, but for whatever reason, now they're putting it all together. They got Derrick Rose back. I have Derrick Rose, but Julius Randle, like the whole team is just playing so well. And I think nobody really thought the Knicks were going to take the next step this season. So they're looking to make the playoffs. I don't know if they will, but it seems they're turning around a little bit, and Julius Randle definitely a part of that. For me, I got some, big pieces on my team, but I would have to say, guy's not underrated, but it's Zion. I mean, Zion really has taken a huge leap to last year. His rookie season, he missed a good portion of the season just with injury. There was concerns, bust. And then towards the end of the season, midway point of the season, started feasting, as everybody knew he would. This season, he's been on fire. He's playing like a top 5 center. He's just been phenomenal. He's top 5 in his position right now. So I think for fantasy purposes, he's a guy that can consistently put up 40 to 60 points a night when he's healthy and when he's playing well. So Zion, again, not underrated, but just not a cornerstone on my team, but very, very glad I was able to get him in like the 3rd or 4th round. So very, very proud of myself for picking that guy up. So Nick, I'll go back to you. Who's one or two guys that maybe we'll stick with one, a guy you would, pick up on waivers, maybe a guy you have picked up on waivers, who's one of those guys, one of those moving pieces. You can even mention your drop here as well.
I think Jordan Clarkson's one for sure. He's another guy who dropped 40 the other night off the bench in 29 minutes for Utah. He's playing fantastic basketball right now. He might be the 6th man of the year when it all comes down to it. He's averaging almost 20 points per game on the season. Kind of looking like Lou Will, Lou Will version for Utah, which is very important to have in the playoffs. So Jordan Clarkson, somehow he was still sitting on free agency. So when we're done recording today, he might be on my team before it's over with. I'm letting you know, Sean.
He won't
be. He'll be my weapon this week.
No, that's
you,
not
so.
why. It's not why I'm saying it. You're gonna be very disappointed, but I'll let you finish.
Oh boy,
I'm finished now.
Sean, would you care to explain?
Okelo picked up Jordan Clarkson.
He moves so many players in our league. He might be the most active player in our league, and I appreciate it.
But to be fair, that might be good for us because usually when he picks up somebody, they just go back down to where they're usually at. So,
or he tries to trade him to me.
What?
Or he tries to trade him to me.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Pena is the worst at understanding that we are smart people. So
hey, an example of that. He told America to pick up Doug McDermott, I believe that was 3 weeks ago. And then the week after that, he told everybody to drop Doug McDermott. So, and when he told me Doug McDermott, that was his ad. I didn't even know he was still in the league. So I don't know where Okelo was digging to find these guys, but he dug and then he buried. So
I want to see how many times there has to be a stat on how many moves a player makes.
It probably is.
If I find that while we're on this broadcast, I need to say it because I think this man lives on the ESPN fantasy app constantly.
Listen, at least he cares about it. I will say that. So shout out Okelo. I'm proud.
I
I'm
got it
proud
right here,
you are
John.
taking
I
our
got it
league
right here.
seriously.
I
He's
got it
made
right
30
here.
acquisitions.
There you go.
30. 30 acquisitions. And we are in week 6. Crazy.
Yeah, I think week 7 technically. Week 6 for us. Week 7, I think,
Yeah,
overall.
technically week 7.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. So Sean, I don't believe you said who was a guy you would pick up or drop. Who would be that guy? Who's a moving part on your team?
See, the last couple weeks, there's been this like roller coaster ride of emotion with a couple of my players. Like they do really good and then they just kind of drop off. And I'm a guy, and when people they get surprised. I drop a guy and I say the reason why is because they're not consistent enough. If somebody puts up 59 and then 20, it's not consistent enough for me. So I actually I'll say one that I picked up a little while ago. I picked up Lou Williams. Lou Williams has been playing really good recently. He kind of got a slow start. He wasn't putting up good points, but I don't know. He's kind of turned on a gear right now where he's putting up some solid points. I don't know how long that's going to last. I'm anticipating he'll be on my team for about 2 weeks, and then he's going to be cut. But I dropped him, or I picked him up for Evan Fournier. I dropped Evan Fournier, got him off my team because, again, injured, not producing what I needed from him, so on and so forth. You don't need to put this on the screen, but I just dropped Norman Powell. He was on my team for maybe 5 days. OG Anunoby's coming back, so I need to get Norman Powell off. I already have Fred VanVleet. And I picked up TJ McConnell. The dude is just putting up numbers, and there's no disputing him. So we'll see how that goes. These are 2 guys I'm like hoping, I'm like praying on a shooting star that they do well for me. But if not, I'm going to have to cut them in the next week or 2.
Yeah, as a former Lou Will owner, he did not produce for me. Injuries,
I know.
Also just way mad inconsistent. So yeah, Lou Will did not show up for me. So hopefully he has better success for you. As far as my guy, I just recently picked up Victor Oladipo. He was on waivers. He's a day-to-day decision right now, so he could come back within the next couple of games. Hopefully he does, but I had to do it because I had to drop Marcus Smart. I was so happy when I picked up Marcus Smart off waivers. I was like, oh man, this guy's averaging 30 points a night. He was putting up great numbers for me. And then he gets hurt. So he's out for the next, I don't know, 3 weeks, something like that. So it's just in basketball, every week matters. So you need to drop a guy like that. So I'm willing to take that risk. I like Oladipo. Oladipo is still averaging a good amount of points as well himself. So I will absolutely take that risk just to get a guy, within the coming games instead of the coming week. So that's where I'm at. Great discussion, boys. I love talking fantasy basketball just because we get to talk about ourselves for 15 minutes. So it's always great to do that. When we come back, we're gonna do a little bit of baseball. We haven't touched on that in a while, so stay tuned as we talk MLB.
Welcome back to HTF Bets. This segment we're talking about something that I have no business giving any insight on: baseball. So that's why I am hosting this segment, and I'm going to give it to people that actually know what they're talking about. So we're going to start by talking about one team in the National and American League that Nick and Rob believe is a contender. So Nick, I'll start with you. Let's start with the National League. Who is your one team in the National League that you could see taking it all the way?
Well, obviously the easy answer is the Dodgers, and how could you not? They're the most stacked team in the league. They add Trevor Bauer onto an already impressive team. They were able to re-sign Justin Turner as well to keep stability at third base. They're going to be there. We know that, but I don't think the gap is as large as everybody thinks because they were down 3-1 in that NLCS last year. They were down 3-1, came back against Atlanta. Atlanta, I think, is going to be much better this year, especially if Mike Soroka can get back healthy somewhere along the way this season. But the Padres are obviously, I think, the team that I think is going to give them a run for their money. The Padres are also just as equally loaded with Tatis and Will Myers and so many other great players. And the pitching this year is just unbelievable with Blake Snell being added to the mix there. They're going to be a player. Dinelson Lamet, of course. The Padres are definitely going to be a player right there with the Dodgers. This is the next great rivalry in baseball, in my opinion, especially there in California. So I think the Dodgers are the favorite, but I think the Padres are going to be right on their heels.
Yeah, Rob, what are your thoughts on that? Do you agree with Nick that the Dodgers and Padres are the top two there?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's very clear they're the top two teams in the National League West. I mean, the Dodgers, it's always been a big gap between who's first and who's last in that division. That division sucks for the most part. The Dodgers, the gap's never been this close between the Braves, who are in a different division, and of course their own division, which is the Padres. But I'm hesitant when people say it's a rivalry, just because it's never been a rivalry. Everybody knows that Petco Park in San Diego is Dodger Stadium South. When the Dodgers and Padres play, the Padres fans don't show up. The Dodgers fans do. They invade that stadium. I know because I've been there. So, it's never been a rivalry. Now it's kind of feeling like it will be. But, Padres need to actually win a playoff series for once. Don't get swept when you play the Dodgers, and maybe I'll respect you more. So definitely a better team now. But, at least for my money, and I'm biased, obviously, but for my money, the Dodgers, adding Bauer, getting Turner back, having Betts, having Bellinger, having Seager, the Dodgers are stacked. And, I think the Dodgers, for right now, they're the favorites in the National League West. And in my opinion, they're the favorite to come out of the National League.
Yeah, take what Rob says with, I wouldn't say a grain of salt, but just understand it's like me talking about the Patriots to a degree.
Exactly.
I don't show bias, though. I am completely unbiased in my takes. So, Nick, really quickly, if you said Padres, Dodgers, if you were to have to place some money on one of these teams, who are you placing your money on?
Brutal.
I know. Listen, this is a betting show. I don't know what to tell you.
Brutal. I mean, I would place it on the Padres because I'm going to get more money if I win, and I think it's doable. Because first of all, I hope Trevor Bauer falls flat on his face with that big shiny contract. So, and I'm banking on that. We'll bet on that one. Will his ERA be under 4 for the second time in his career? Might I add?
Okay, I'm writing that down. And we already know what Rob's going to do, even though, again, you won't win much money betting on the Dodgers since they're already the
Listen,
favorite.
I don't care. I care about the ring. I don't care about the money.
See, there you go. Exactly. All right, let's go into the American. The American, this is more of a toss-up. There is a bunch of great teams in the American League. You can go down the list. Yankees, Rays, Astros. Rob, let's start with you. What's the one team? I know it's hard because, again, there's so many. Who's the one team in the American that you could see, again, getting to the end of it?
Yeah, I think it kind of has to be the Yankees. The Rays, I know, Nick, I'm not trying to diss on your team. I don't hate the Rays. I do like the Rays. I respect them. I just don't think the Rays are gonna be that great this year. They lost Snell. They lost Charlie Morton. They lost. They don't want to pay guys, so they lost a lot of guys. They had a great run to the World Series, and that was it. They cashed in on that. That was it. So I think the Yankees, it's really going to be dependent on pitching. They lost Tanaka, they lost James Paxton, but they added Corey Kluber, who's kind of a wild card coming off injury, hasn't pitched in 2 years. But, aside from their rotation, if they can keep that lineup healthy of Judge and Stanton, and even going into the starting rotation with Severino, if they can keep those guys healthy, I don't see any reason why the Yankees aren't a favorite in the American League this season.
Nick, listen, I know you're a Tampa Bay forever type of guy. I know, again, the Bucks won the Super Bowl, so you have something. The Lightning won the Stanley Cup. I'm sorry, but is this, are the Rays just the worst team in Tampa? Is that what it's come to?
Let me respond to Rob here. He talks about the Yankees staying healthy in the lineup. When does that ever happen? It doesn't happen.
True, very true.
This daunted rotation right now. Luis Severino, when does he pitch? We don't see much of him anymore. Corey Kluber hasn't pitched in 2 years. Jamison Taillon has had Tommy John like 3 times in his career.
Carlos Stanton gets hurt every season.
Yeah, he gets hurt every year. Aaron Judge gets hurt every year. They're all names, Rob. They're all names. That's all the Yankees are. They're just a bunch of names. They're a bunch of names. Did they beat the Rays last? No. With all those names, they didn't beat the Rays. And guess what? Everybody's like, oh, Blake Snell's gone. Blake Snell this. Charlie Morton this. Let me tell you right now. Last year, the Rays made the World Series. Blake Snell couldn't get past 2 innings every start, 2 or 3 innings.
Okay,
Charlie Morton.
That's where I stopped you. That now when the news came out about Blake Snell going away, you were hurt.
I've seen this story before. I was at first, and then you think about it. The Rays are the best team in the Major League Baseball developing pitchers and prospects, and that's what they got back. It's a freaking circle of life with the Rays. I bet you they can get back to the World Series. And for the money that we paid, we could have paid Charlie Morton. We brought in Chris Archer, Colin McHugh, Rich Hill, and Michael Wacha. I promise you those 4 guys can do the same job that Charlie Morton can do at the same price. And I promise you the Rays will do enough to scrap and claw, and they will beat these Yankees again because they are being disrespected right now, especially by Fangraphs, who said the Red Sox had a higher chance of making the playoffs than the Rays. And they're not even fielding a competitive team at all this year. They're trying to lose. So
no, I disagree with that.
I take offense to that, Robert, and I will stick with my Rays getting it done this year.
So,
I like
so
that you defend your team.
So you're taking the Rays to go to the World Series.
This city has gotten over the hump mentally. It's time to take. We have one more step.
This is what happens when Tom Brady gets to your city. Everything changes. It seems like.
Boy,
the flowers actually blossom for sports teams.
And I told you, and I told everybody that would listen in March, this is what's going to happen, and yet it happened.
All right, I'm going to agree with Rob. I'm going to say the Yankees finally get over that hump. It just seems like all of the Yankees have been trying to get over that hump for years. And I feel like this is the year they finally just say, okay, we are better than almost every single team in the MLB. Let's just stop. Let's actually play like it. Like Nick said, though, the injuries, that's a big problem for the Yankees, especially because they have all the talent in the world. But it just seems like every month, one big name guy gets injured. So if they can stay healthy, I'm going to say Yankees. Really quick, Nick, Rob, MVP. Nick, who's your MVP for the season?
Juan Soto. He's my pick in the NL, and I think he should be the pick in all of baseball. I think he should have won it last year if he didn't miss a week, and I think he gets it done this year.
Robert, MVP.
Yeah, hard to argue with that. Mookie Betts is the favorite on a lot of betting. I would say probably Juan Soto as well. I'm going to be boring. Juan Soto, like Nick said, probably could have won it last year if he didn't get hurt. Kid's an amazing ball player. So out of the National League, I don't think anybody on the Dodgers or Padres, just because they're stacked, I don't think anybody's winning it. Yeah, I think Juan Soto.
Well, that's the show. Thank you for tuning into HTF Bets. Come back next week where Okelo cries about after losing to Robert on fantasy basketball again. Thank you for tuning in. See you guys next week.
Wait. Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.